So the following video of a Palestinian girl crying at the demolition of her house has gone viral on social media. So I wanted to explain some context as to how this all went down, exactly what happened on that day. And so the people are a lot more educated on this subject and of course know exactly what went down if anybody has any questions to ask about what actually happened. Just before I play the video, it's in Arabic, so what she is screaming is she's screaming for the bulldozers to go away. This is at night. She's crying out, where will we go? Where will we live? Of course, because this family was just made homeless. So here's the video.
الله يهدونهم والله ينتقم منهم من العرب الخونة طيت اطفال هذول بس يا الله نروح يا رب وين نروح الله يهدونهم إلهي تقواهم يا رب الله ينتقم منهم خطيتكم بس الله لا يجبرهم خطية العالم حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل فيهم ويعتعب الشباب والأطفال هذول الله لا يجبرهم ربهم حسيبهم ربهم العرب الخونة.
So as hard as that is to watch, I want to give huge credit to Al Media, which is a Jerusalem-based Palestinian media group, and they sort of monitor what's been going on. So for the cameraman that filmed that, he did an amazing job, or she did an amazing job, and we wouldn't even know about this case unless it was filmed. And I know from being on the ground in Palestine and watching house demolitions myself, that this stuff never gets out there. So the grief of the children, the grief of the mothers and fathers and the people who've grown up in these homes rarely ever gets shown like that. And so the fact that we have that there, as heartbreaking as it is in a way, I don't want to say a good thing, but it's good to show what's going on a daily basis. Now, to give some context to this story, this took place in South Jerusalem, the south of Jerusalem, and basically the homeowner who built the house, he spoke to a number of Palestinian media organizations. His name's Brahim, and he built the house in 2001, meaning that his children that you just saw in that video had grown up their entire lives. They'd never known another house in their life. And he was suddenly fined out of nowhere 150,000 shekels, which I think comes to around 80,000 US dollars, and got told that basically there was a decision that his building was illegal. Of course, this didn't come through in 2001 when he built the house, but it just came through. Anyway, he then went on to say that the building, basically, he got a lawyer who he paid between 50 to 60,000 US dollars to defend him, and this lawyer attempted, his name was Sami al-Sheikh, he attempted 4 times to plead with the Israeli authorities, the municipality in the area, to basically either postpone demolition or to, reverse this decision and say that the building is illegal, there's nothing illegal about it. So after he paid that money, there was then within one day he got a notice that within one day he has to bulldoze his property, and that's why it was at night. So the Israelis gave him one of two choices, and this is the choice that they give Palestinians. They tell them there's one of two things you can do. Either one, you can just wait by and we'll bulldoze your house within the time space. So it would have been bulldozed within the same day regardless. Or you can pay for the bulldozers yourself and the Israeli bulldozers will come and do it. And the problem is, though, with the Israeli bulldozers coming and doing it, they gave him specifically, he stated that he would have to pay 250,000 shekels for the Israeli bulldozers to come with the Israeli occupation forces and bulldoze his house. So, of course, he quickly got family members and friends together, pulled all of his stuff out of all of his belongings out of his house, and then had it paid for these Israeli bulldozers to come and knock down his house. And that's the reality there, that your house, you have to pay for the demolition of your own house. And people might say, oh, well, it was built without a permit and all the rest of this. Palestinians don't get permits to build houses. You know, it's nearly impossible for a Palestinian to get a permit to build a house. So, and on top of this, we have to understand that Israel's been doing this in ethnically cleansing areas and pushing illegal Jewish settlers into these areas since 1967, when they illegally occupied all of Jerusalem, and then they later annexed Jerusalem against international law, but nobody even mentions that. So this land is illegally occupied and annexed by Israel. And there's an apartheid wall built around it. And so for Israel to claim that, oh, well, they need permits, well, technically, according to international law, this is their land. It's part of Jerusalem, which Israel calls its undivided capital. And not only in Jerusalem are they doing this, they're doing this down south in El Khalil. Yesterday, they bulldozed some tent structures in a place south of Al Khalil, which is a major city. There's a village called Susia, which was basically expelled. There was an Israeli settlement put where their village is. They live in tent structures and caves. I've been there many times. And they started coming in and destroying these tent structures. That's what they do. And the day before that, in Jenin, they destroyed more houses, making more people homeless. And just yesterday, on top of that, they destroyed 4 more houses in Silwan, which is a neighborhood inside of Jerusalem, and that made 20 people homeless. There were 5 families living within these buildings. And of course, again, back to the permits to build, basically these Jerusalemite Palestinians who live inside of Jerusalem are given the opportunity to build. And at the time, you know, most of these buildings are built without permits because they can either build the house for their family, they can be homeless, or they can attempt to become a refugee and flee, which some of them did. Many of them actually did flee. For instance, the Christian population has dramatically decreased inside of Jerusalem because of measures like this, because the conditions are so hard for Palestinians that they have to flee. And so, even inside of what is called Israel now, where Palestinians are living in a place called, you might know it as the Negev Desert, the Palestinians know it as Al-Naqab, they had demolished just last year in 2019, they demolished 2,200 homes. 2,200. Just last year. And this year they've demolished hundreds of homes. They've expelled hundreds of people. As of the 8th of July, I think it was, and the campaign really started ramping up then, so we need updated figures. As of 8th of July, according to B'Tselem of this year, it was 86 children were displaced in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, were made homeless. 86 children. And there's nobody talking about this. Nobody wants to speak about it at all. Nobody wants to talk about the situation in general at all. Or the fact that not only are these houses demolished, in land which is not recognized by the international community or any of the world except for the Trump administration and the Israeli regime itself, it's not recognized as theirs. they go in there and they tell Palestinians they have to have permits to build on their own land, and they'll bulldoze structures and places anyway, which were built with permits at the time where they were built, but the Palestinians don't have permits which are updated with the new municipality, right? They haven't updated these documents. And if they haven't updated the documents, the house could have been there, the home could have been there for hundreds of years, and they'll bulldoze it. And another thing that they do is they say that Jewish people used to live in this house, you know, however many years ago, and they don't need any proper proof of this, by the way. There's many cases where they have no proof that there were Jewish people living in this house at any period whatsoever, and what they do is they date back to hundreds of years ago and certain times where the majority of this area was Jewish or whatever, and they justify it and they push people out their homes. They do this in the old city of Jerusalem. So the situation that you are seeing now, this is a part of it, and those children which are homeless now, like that child you just saw, this is a thing that happens all the time. You know, in the Jordan Valley, for instance, the Jordan Valley, we're talking about the annexation of the Jordan Valley a lot now. The Jordan Valley has basically already been ethnically cleansed. When I was there in 2017, I was there when they were building mud hut structures, and the army would come along and bulldoze the structures. 85% of it is a closed military zone. They constantly come in, even during the COVID-19 crisis. They've come in and they've destroyed these makeshift hospitals that they've made in the Jordan Valley and in other areas as well. This is what they do constantly. And so the emotions you see from people like in that video, that happens every day. It's happening every other day. That scenario that you just saw there with that girl. And I think I'll leave it there because there's so much I could say on this issue. There's so many houses currently being bulldozed, and the Palestinian people are still being ethnically cleansed. It's never changed.